Today, we're diving into one of the weirdest confrontations in all of history. It's a story where the United States and Great Britain, the two biggest superpowers of their time, went right to the edge of war. And the reason why? Not land, not money, but a single, hungry pig.
Take a look at this place. This is San Juan Island, tucked between Washington State and Vancouver Island. It looks pretty idyllic, right? But back in 1859, this quiet little island became ground zero for a military standoff that almost redrew the map of North America in blood.
So, what on earth could possibly bring the full power of the British Royal Navy and the United States Army to this tiny, remote spot? What was the one thing that could threaten to kick off a third war between America and Britain?
Yep, you're reading that right. The spark that lit the fuse for this entire international incident was a pig. I know, it sounds like the setup to a joke, but trust me, the situation got deadly serious incredibly fast.
Okay, so how in the world does something like this even happen? Let's break down the bizarre chain of events that put one farm animal at the very center of a geopolitical firestorm. It all kicks off on June 15, 1859. An American farmer named Lyman Cutler finds a pig munching on his potato patch, so he shoots it. Now, this should have just been a squabble over money. The owner wanted $100, Cutler offered 10, but things went sideways when British authorities threatened to arrest Cutler, an American citizen on land he believed was American. That's when the settlers called for the U.S. military.
Now here's the real kicker. The pig wasn't the real problem. It was just the spark that lit the fuse. The real issue had been simmering for more than a decade, and it was all thanks to that one thing that always causes trouble between countries, a poorly drawn map.
See, back in 1846, the Oregon Treaty was supposed to settle the border for good. It said the line should run to the middle of the channel, between Vancouver Island and the mainland. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, there was one tiny problem. Nobody specified which channel.
And this map just shows you the problem perfectly. You've got the Haro Strait on the west side of the islands and the Rosario Strait on the east. The treaty was totally vague, leaving this entire island chain floating in a kind of diplomatic no-man's land.
So naturally, the U.S. said the border was the Haro Strait, giving them the islands. And Great Britain said, no, it's the Rosario Strait, so they get the islands. For years, you had this weird setup where both American settlers and British Hudson's Bay Company employees were living on the islands, each totally convinced they were on their own home soil.
So when that pig got shot, it was about way more than potatoes. It was about sovereignty. It was about who made the rules on this land. And with both sides willing to use force to prove their point, this little farm dispute was about to explode into a full-blown military crisis. And just look how fast everything spiraled. We go from a dead pig on June 15th to American troops landing just over a month later. A few days after that, British warships show up. In less than 2 months, this thing went from 0 to 100 real quick.
And the Americans were completely, utterly outgunned. By mid-August, you had 461 U.S. soldiers staring down 5 British warships with 70 cannons and more than 2,000 men. I mean, if a shooting war had started, it would have been a slaughter.
But despite those insane odds, the American soldiers, led by a captain named George Pickett, started digging in. They built fortifications and got ready for a British attack that they had to know they probably couldn't survive. And yep, that's the George Pickett, the same guy who would later lead that infamous charge at Gettysburg. He was just as stubborn here too. He told his men, "We'll make a Bunker Hill of it," basically saying they were ready to fight to the last man. Tensions were at an absolute breaking point.
So you've got two armies dug in, staring each other down, fingers on their triggers. It really seemed like war was just moments away. But right when things couldn't get any more tense, a little bit of common sense made a surprise appearance.
The British governor gave the order to the Royal Navy, land your men and kick the Americans off the island. But the commander on the scene, Rear Admiral Robert Baines, took a look at the situation and refused. He famously said he would not involve two great nations in a war over a squabble about a pig. One man's moment of sanity prevented a war.
With the immediate danger over, the diplomats in Washington and London could finally step in. President Buchanan sent his top general, Winfield Scott, to negotiate. And the solution they came up with was, well, it was a little strange, but it worked. A temporary joint military occupation of the island.
And this is where the story gets truly bizarre. Both the U.S. and Britain agreed to leave just 100 soldiers each. And for the next 12 years, these two opposing armies lived peacefully on the same tiny island. They'd visit each other, compete in sports, and even celebrate holidays like Christmas and the 4th of July together. It's just wild.
You can actually still see where they stayed. These are the two camps now preserved as a historical park. The American camp was up on a meadow, the British one down by the shore. For over a decade, they were soldiers on opposite sides of a border dispute who basically just became friendly neighbors.
But a 12-year friendly truce isn't a permanent solution. The big question of who owned the island still had to be answered, and the final chapter of this very strange story would be written far from Washington or London, right in the heart of Europe. Finally, in 1871, the U.S. and Britain decided to end the whole thing. They agreed to hand the problem over to a neutral third party and let an international arbitrator make the final call, once and for all.
And the person they chose as the arbitrator? None other than German Emperor Wilhelm I. Seriously, the fate of this American-British dispute was put in the hands of the German Kaiser. And in October 1872, the Emperor's Commission made its ruling. They sided with the United States. They decided that Hrones Strait was the true border, officially making the San Juan Islands American territory. The British peacefully withdrew their troops, the crisis was finally over, and the final casualty count after 12 years of tension: 0 humans, 1 pig. The Pig War is a great, quirky little footnote in history, but it's also a powerful reminder of how easily a small, almost comical dispute can escalate when big things like national pride and strategy are on the line. It really makes you wonder, what seemingly small disputes going on today hold the seeds of the next major conflict?